thank you all for coming out. I just wanted to say thank you to Nuart. We're thrilled to be here tonight, and thank you to all of you for coming out. A couple of brief thank yous to my co-directors, Mary Navasky and Mabel Boyle, who are very much a part of everything to do with this film. Shout out to them. Also amazing creative team of cinematographers Wolfgang Held, Tim Gruja and Ben McCoy, incredible composer Sarah Lynch, graphics design by Connor O'Boyle, and our amazing animation team from Dublin, Eat the Danger. I also wanted to shout out that Joan, we're lucky to have many family and friends here tonight, including her son Gabe Harris and granddaughter Jasmine. We're thrilled you're here, and women as well. Chip, along with many great friends here. Thank you all for coming out, and many I'm not mentioning. And also, we're lucky that one of our executive producers, Terry Press, is in the house tonight, who's been a faithful and early champion of this film and been able to help us. And certainly last but not least, we are absolutely thrilled and honored that the woman of the hour is here herself tonight, Miss Joan Baez, along with our very special moderator, Lana Del Rey. Please welcome them to the stage.
I went out in the lobby trying to go to the bathroom and I couldn't even get there. Screaming and hollering, adoring fans. Thank you so much for being here tonight, Lana.
Oh, it is my honor. Hello, everyone. Well, I guess, from seeing the general reaction all around the world, and from what we've read today, I think what I'm getting most clearly is that the emotion you portrayed when you were 18 and now throughout the film is so relatable that, it's just been massively acclaimed already, because of, how specific your emotions were and how much solace people found in the vulnerability that you had in the film, which to me was the most unexpected thing. And on top of that, the stunning cinematography and the seamless editing, just to me, made it a classic film, especially since my favorite documentary since I was 18 was something you drew footage from, D.A. Pennebaker, Don't Look Back. It's when I fell in love with you, Joan. And, it's just like, to me, seeing it, it's an instant classic. And I think when somebody famous or well-known, as we like to be called, makes a film, that's the greatest compliment you can have, that it wouldn't even have mattered if it was just someone who was working an everyday job, that it was just absolutely striking. So, I have a few questions. And fire away? Yep. Okay. And thank you for those lovely comments. Absolutely. Okay. Well, at the end of the movie, when asked what your favorite decade was, you didn't even take a breath, and you said, this one. So before beginning, I'd like to say that you and I are in the same place in that way. And I think it's because of one of the last quotes you said, I'm present in the way I never could have been present before. And in that way, I would consider that being called whole.
Yeah. And if you relate to that, I'm absolutely delighted.
It is a miracle as a female singer, or anybody.
Yeah, yes. And I would say that if there's something I'm really proud of in the film, it's seeing that tunnel and going through it and coming out on the other side. I mean, there are no phobias left. There are no panic attacks, the occasional, but nothing like the crippling stuff that it was for those years. So it takes work, but I would encourage anybody to deal with their demons at whatever level you possibly can.
Having known you, after the first time I met you, I called my sister and I said, we sang together in Berkeley, and I said, that is the toughest woman I have ever met. So watching the film on my computer for the first hour and 20 minutes, I had to keep closing it because I was overwhelmed. Because I think the most surprising aspect is that you, as a symbol of like a lioness, would even have experienced one panic attack. To me, let alone for that to be the majority of the beginning of the film, I was startled. So, brings me to my next question.
You can ramble on.
I will. I thought she'd take over. I'll do it. Well, your mother said that she felt there was always something worrying Joni, and they didn't quite understand why, and for what it's worth. From having the same experience myself with anxiety, I've come to know now, after looking back at the history of my family generation, that I've come by it very honestly, and that's something that actually gives me great comfort, as well as really understanding that I truly was born very sensitive with an early awareness that people struggle. What I've spent the last few years doing is practicing holding two worlds in one hand, and I was just wondering, to what degree do you feel that you've been able to hold the pain of the weight of the world that you've fought for so well as to be able to prioritize your own happiness now?
Yeah, I was just happy to get the world off my shoulders. And yeah, I mean, it was a heavy load. And as I watched the movie, I think, oh, I did have fun. I did laugh. I did make people laugh. So looking back, it tends to get, more attracted to the darker side. And I don't really feel that way anymore. And I don't remember what your question was. I'm just looking up for you.
Thanks. No, it was the ability to hold two worlds in one hand, where you not only, I think something in the film that you said was before you were a singer, you were socially consciously aware. That came first. And then
So those are the two worlds you're talking about.
So that's the one on top of just internally just feeling everything empathically, but also being able to have your own life and prioritize what makes you feel alive as well. Like, does it take work to integrate the two?
Yeah, sure. And probably more than two.
Yeah.
A bunch. And the most obvious one in the film is my personal life, trying to be a great mom, trying to be, and thinking that I was. That's the weirdest thing of all. That thinking that I was present and I wasn't present. So all of that's in the learning process as you go along, thinking, oh my God, I really wasn't there, and I thought I was. But those are I think another thing is important to mention, when it says in there I was addicted to activism, it doesn't mean that I regret anything I did. It just means that I should have been home with my kid. And for whatever the reasons were, I couldn't even do that intimacy. I had to go out in the world and do other things. So you regret it for the rest of your life and deal with the guilt and get on with it.
Yeah.
Somebody gave me this great little picture of Kuan Yin meditating, and it says, you can drop that shit now. It's time to drop that shit, you know, it takes.
That's the Joan I know, yeah.
But you have tapped into, there is a duality throughout in the film. It's both reflective of, I think, Joan's inner world, but also the film throughout. So you're right. I mean, there's a light and a dark everywhere. It's structured in that in all sorts of ways. And so, I think, to your point, I think it's holding both things at the same time in the film as well as in Joan. So.
Yeah, that kind of makes me feel like, in a way, it's never really over, even when you drop the rock. It's kind of like, you know, I think one of the last things you said is that the demons come and go periodically, but you can measure them by how often you see your phobias or panic attacks come up. And it's less and less, and yet, I think at some point when we spoke, you know, we talked about how for some people, being hopeful is a practice. Not for everybody.
No, I mean, some people are hopeful.
That's right.
And I'm not blessed with that. Somebody who's really hopeful, they said, hope is a practice. You really have to work at it, if you're not kind of born optimistic, which I wasn't.
Well, and I'm sorry, but is that not such a shock? From one of our most amazing icons, like the representative of hope.
That's embarrassing.
Well, what's amazing is it is startling. And combined with how beautifully the film is shot, that's why I had to take breaks, because I just didn't know. It's unbelievable. And then, you know, in terms of moderating, you might think, well, they're so different. And then you think, you know, well, everybody, well, not everybody, but people who feel things, like Jasmine said, like your granddaughter said, who feel everything, you know, their hope is a practice.
In a world that's, you know, in a state of disaster at the moment, particularly hard to keep on to hope, all the politics and all the wars and all that grisly stuff, and then that, you know, and that's all the backdrop of global warming. So it's really difficult to find your bearings and practice hope, and you probably can't do it without some kind of action, you know, that you push yourself to go and do something. We don't have a major victory at the moment. We can have a gazillion little ones. So, you know, I would really encourage you to find what your calling is to go and take part in one of those gazillion small kindnesses or actions that you can find.
Yeah. That is your strength. That is what sets you apart and what makes you a cultural icon. And that is, I think that might be nature and nurture. I think that must have just been right there in you.
But what I'm thinking of is that early on when I'm saying that it was those kids who had the courage.
In the march.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like it dwarfs my efforts, what I saw those kids do, knowing they get beaten up and knowing they would be spat on and it all happened, but they did it anyway.
Right.
And so that's it. I think courage is contagious. And that's where I would get it when we were out on those walks. I'm sure I thought those kids and I thought, oh my God, if they're doing this, surely I can, I can at least be with them.
Did it inspire courage?
Oh yeah, was inspired by it and moved by it and moved to action by it.
Does being moved to action diminish any of those earlier panic attacks at all, or was it just?
No, I think that's a good question. It was in the activity that I found as much peace as I could find. When you see me walking on the street with the demonstrators, and I was at ease, and I felt happy. I knew I never questioned whether I was on the right track, because I was trained by teachers in nonviolence, and I always chose which path to follow, and whatever the demonstration of the group or the issue, would have to go at it from nonviolence point of view of nonviolence. So I don't look back and think, oh Jesus, what did I do? This or that. Whether it was successful or not, I felt I was on the right track.
Yeah, and not to compare anything like that happened then, but it seems like the instinct and knowing the peace that came from knowing you were at the right place in the right time. It almost seems to feel similar with this entire world tour, with showing the film and answering the questions. It's almost like you wouldn't even question whether you were supposed to be sitting here right now. Like in the film you said, I couldn't have done it a year ago. It's the right time now. And it's funny because I had an interview yesterday, which I rarely do, but someone said, well, I heard you're a mystic. What does that mean? And I said, I think it just means following your intuition and trusting it, and then ending up with that good feeling where you know you're in the right place at the right time. And a big part of it is almost being clairvoyant with your own timing, your own clock. So I can only imagine the momentum of going to so many cities is bringing some amount of peace that adds a little bit of sparkle to that feeling of wholeness that you talked about.
Well, what's been wonderful is the response of people when I bare my soul. What we discovered is that people will come up and say basically that gave them the courage to tackle something they haven't been able to before. And that's been a lot of people, and that's been not something that I planned or wasn't why I made a movie, but to be of service through the film has been really wonderful.
Yeah. I mean, this film is it's a life's work from the beginning to the end. So I want to cut right to the chase of the things I'm interested in.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, you asked me to come. You talked about, I think the thing that surprised me the most about the one thread that ran through the movie was your love stories. Yeah. That's why we're here. You talked about meeting Kim, and you said she was more feral than me. And then you met Bob, who is arguably more wild than anybody at the time. And you said that they made you feel like a ruffian dancing in the street barefoot without a care. And what struck me is that I always felt that in all of the images and in knowing you were the, so to say, fire starter. But it seemed throughout the film that I would say the thing that surprised me the most was you actually fell in love with people who were fire starters. That's right. And I was just wondering, do you still feel even more joyful on top of being whole when you're shoulder to shoulder with a fire starter?
I never quite understand what you're getting at with that.
I know you don't. I know.
I mean, so we're joking about it.
Yeah, I know.
Me looking for a partner. By the time I got through the 8 years of the therapy stuff you were hearing,
Yeah.
I was so experiencing some kind of peace I never had before. That, oh my God, I can really carry on from here. And then the therapist said sort of something to the effect of, well, now it's time to go and look for a partner. I said, fuck you. I am not going there. I just got my life, not even back.
I just got my life back.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't know if I answered your question.
I mean, I certainly relate. That's definitely when the sessions end. I mean, all I would say is, I think.
You want me to be the fire starter?
No, yes. Yes, I do. It's what I learned from the film is that you are this lioness, and yet you were goofy, you were funnier, not funnier, Joan. It brought out a funny side, a barefoot side when you found an even bigger lion, or so you thought. And I just thought that it was interesting that I could relate to that, because to me, you are the lion. And what I learned is that you also thrive with a partner. Wow. You know, we talked briefly about the types of people who can come into your life and make it bigger and more exciting and wilder, and then the feelings that can arise when they leave. And then you're left with this world, and it's so big, and it's separate from being an icon. And I think that was one of the most surprising things in the film, that you had said, I'm in love, and I finally feel like a normal person. I shut the laptop. I was like, who is this person? So I just thought that was interesting.
Oh yeah, the letters of Dear Mommy and Popsy. Listen, I had no say about how this movie was made. None, zero. I did the keys to the.
Oh, she had no. It was a complete act of trust. She had no final cut, none of that. It was
Just the recordings then.
she turned it all over.
It's all turned over. Yeah. If I had listened to those, therapy tapes, it would have been impossible. Ooh, not that. Ugh, did I say that? I just said, take them. And for the most part, I'm okay with all of it. Some of them I still wince, really cringeworthy to me. But I know that in the making of the film, that they are part of what builds the film. So, yeah.
Yeah, I had mentioned at some point that in the beginning of the film, the home footage of you and your sister with the hair blowing in the wind, just that moment alone, it's like a classic vignette. When you had the narrative, you speaking over the home footage you had on the train, do you remember shooting that footage? Or
I vaguely remember, yeah. I remember doing the tapes. I wouldn't ever remember what I'd said on them.
Yeah.
But when I hear it, I remember being on the train and doing the tapes, because it made more sense than to write, although I also wrote, endlessly. And by the way, all that was in that storage unit was stuff my mom had kept, everything. And I never really kept much of anything. I notoriously lose everything. So my father's, they'd kept, his pictures and photographs and 8mm films of us, and it was all there. It was like the director's dream and the director's nightmare, because it was so much stuff.
And the scene where Joan walks into the storage unit, that is actually the first time she ever walked into the storage unit. She'd never been in there or seen any of it before. So, and that changed the course of the film, because although we always knew the farewell tour would be a narrative anchor, the contemporary strand, as soon as we found this archive, it all changed. And with that original source material, you hear Joan 21 at the March on Washington.
Oh, yeah.
We realized we could deal with the past differently, so that we could, our hope was in the film, it would be a dreamscape, that you would merge the past and the present, and it would be this kind of fluid transition, not these breaks, and so that you would go back in time with Joan, but it would still feel immersive and intimate, because you heard her experiencing it at the time. So it wasn't Joan in the remove talking about it, it was Joan experiencing it. So we had this way to deal with the past and present. The past would inform the present, and the present would be informed by the past. And that may sound a little in the weeds, but there was something about the original source material that just cracked it wide open.
No, what's striking is that it all feels like the present.
That's
All of it.
That's fantastic.
It's like it's right now. That's what I think makes it an instant classic documentary. And I also think it's lucky, I know with working with my sister, you know, when you think you're doing one thing and then the film takes an unexpected turn and you think, oh God, can I do this? Can I work with this turn? But as soon as you see the archival footage or you hear someone's voice at 19 saying, hi mommy, hi Popsy, I'm on a train, well that's going to change the trajectory of it being like a tour-based movie, yeah, which is my favorite, you know. Well, let me ask you an interesting question.
You already have.
I noticed in the film above the piano, there's a portrait.
Of old happy face.
Yeah, Mr. Happiness. I think it may have been the only picture above the piano. I have no question.
Well, what happens with that, aside from the fact that I love where he peers in with that grumpy face, singing away in his old happy face. But that is right, but whatever painting I just finished, I would put it there. It's not, you know.
Permanent.
Yeah, I have happier pictures of Bob. You know. I have a nice picture of him when he had baby fat, which we both did when we were hanging out together. We were so young, really young.
Do you want to talk about Mimi?
Yeah, I want time to know what our time thing is up here. He says, okay. So, talk about Mimi? Oh, I like the way she gets it. You know, it's important to me and a surprise to me. All of what I knew basically what went on between me and my son, but then hearing it in his own voice has been very helpful to me. I didn't know how deep those wounds were. And the same with my sisters. I mean, they never had the nerve to really tell me how they felt, but they felt secure and they trusted Karen. And Pauline would never get in front of a camera, never talk to, you know, the press or anything. She was talking away there about her life. I didn't want to say something to it. Her mud houses, that was serious stuff. She built a house into a mountain, and all by hand. And one of her rules was she couldn't put stuff in there that she couldn't saw a piece of wood to put it in the part of the construction. It had to be as she found it. And these places were unbelievable. 3 stories. And this thing, and the stairs were the roots of the trees, big oak trees. And then, you know, the walls, she made little cubby holes in the walls, and they were filled with all these extraordinary things that a little bit spooky and a little bit phantasmagoric, but and then every time she had a fight with her husband that was really bad, she'd leave, go build another house. And then she'd put in a Volkswagen, the shell of a Volkswagen bus, with vines all over it. You know, one place she was building a house and she put these piles of brush about 15 feet back from the house, all the way around it. She said it was so the rats would live there and leave her alone, which they did because she talked to them all the time. So, I mean, she was a genius, and she made beautiful, beautiful things. So, just wanted to bring that up because she's been so hidden from us all.
Yeah. It's funny though, it's special, the little things we remember. I wrote a poem once that I said something like, if you asked my sister the first thing she thinks of me, if you asked her, she would say, wood smoke. Yeah, like, so it's those little things,
Yeah, but you have to tell them your sister's name.
Chuck
Where it came
Grant.
from. Chuck. But today she told her where it came from.
Huh?
When she was little and she chuckled.
That's right, Chuck. Her name came from when she was little. She had the lowest little chuckle.
Where are you, Chuck? It's a wave.
Where are you, Chucky? There she is. Oh my goodness. She happens to be like me, and she's a stunning artist and beautiful photographer, and it's amazing how much family plays into all of our stories. And I mean, I think we talked a little bit about whether or not some of the anxiety possibly came from family of origin, or whether it was nature versus nurture. So much of the film at the beginning was just like not knowing where it came from. And I don't know, I guess you have to sort of let that stuff go as well. But it seems like one of the things I loved was when you did the interview with your sister, you said, I prefer to remember things realistically, not necessarily in such a jolly way, which I think is good, because then you can really work through it, but still have the beautiful images of the mud houses.
And how the, for instance, we 3 girls were in Baghdad, Iraq for 8 months, and that's where the pictures of the beggars and all of those things that were so, made such a profound impact on us. And each of us reacted in different ways, However, I was formed with my particular empathetic soul and what I ended up doing out in the world. And then Mimi ended up doing something similar on a more local basis. Bread and Roses, an organization where she took entertainment into jails and old people's homes. And it was a fantastic career of sharing her life that way, with music and with people and the specs who didn't have that much. And then Pauline, when her way was to retreat, she carried all the stuff from Baghdad with her as well, I assume. And then she had to go a different way with it. Oh.
Yeah. Well, I asked you a while ago, but when we were talking about Mimi's passing, you said it was in your makeup to resist feeling. But that may have been about that particular event. But then with Pauline.
Yeah, when my mother died, I'm not sure why, but I didn't grieve the way people grieve. When Mimi died, it was easier to understand because there'd been such a horrible last few months with her. I didn't feel much. And when Pauline died, I felt everything, and I was relieved that that's what a person does. And so yeah,
Relieved to feel something.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that tracks. Do you feel like when you watch the film and even see that picture that you could even have imagined that you would have a compilation of your entire life's work from the beginning of that image of you lying in the truck feeling anxiety to the end with you dancing in the field, which is how I kind of know you.
I couldn't have imagined what a first-class movie it would be.
It's a first class
Yeah.
movie. Can I get that Karen must be so proud.
I am proud. I'm proud of my co-directors, Mary and Nate, and I. It was yes, we are. We're proud. We're proud to do justice to this life.
Yeah.
It's quite extraordinary. So it was, as Joan's friend, it was an extra burden, I think, in some ways. Obviously, as a filmmaker, high standards, but wanting to get it right, and a complicated story to tell.
Yeah, you may need a retreat after this to be such dear friends and to actually be a filmmaker. It's unbelievable.
I mean, the film couldn't be what it is without the friendship. Joan, I think that level of trust determined everything. But yeah,
It did, yeah.
Yes, we are. I'm proud of it, and I'm proud to see how people are responding to, I think, her extraordinary honesty about everything in the film. I mean, I look at it and I'm still amazed, whether it's the loss of fame, or Bob breaking her heart, or the bus leaving without her, or her competition with her sisters, or her struggle with Gabe. I mean, it's rare enough in life, and even rarer in terms of celebrity docs, for people to be quite as open and honest about the celebrations, but also the dark, the truth, the harder stuff.
And rare to have so much footage that it's almost like as though if no one had been speaking, you could have almost gotten the narrative. What's the name of the cinematographer again?
There are three principal cinematographers: Wolfgang Held, Ben McCoy, and Tim Gruja. And so we were lucky with it's a small but mighty creative team. We're very small. So, and an amazing.
Small but creative budget.
Really?
And
It looked expensive.
it was, we were lucky, amazingly talented people who
Yeah.
helped us all along the way, and my great co-directors. And so, so we are proud of it.
Now, I think I might have asked this before, but I don't know. But did I already ask if before you said in your journal, I'm not a person, I am a noise? Did I already ask you? What are you now?
Happy.
I didn't think I was that
On behalf of all female, passionate, empathetic singers, may I say that then in that case, everyone here has witnessed a miracle. And I'd like to thank Joan for being a blueprint in that way, because it's nice to see someone's trajectory from nervousness to letting everything happen on life's timeline. It was life's timeline. You never know when you're going to get to that point, if you get to that point. And I just want to say thank you for being one of the few people that I can go back to, especially now in a way I could never have imagined, to this film to relate to. And I will just end with a final quote that Karen shared with me from a good friend of yours. She said, I feel like in this film, Joan is giving sustenance to viewers looking for solace and companionship. And in that way, it's kind of a form of a new level of activism in terms of how emotional and psychologically vulnerable it was. So I just think that really sums it up, and it truly is a form of activism, especially because after COVID and even before that, I think many people live from the neck up. We just live in our heads and our thoughts, and who knew that such a lioness, had so many nervous little thoughts at the beginning, and now to end with the word happy, I love. So thank you for having me. Can I get a standing ovation?
Turn this way. One second.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I get it.
Thank you all for coming. We do have a film starting in just 15 minutes. Starting in 15 minutes. So if you could please pick up your trash, that would be greatly appreciated. We are playing this film for another week. So if you could please tell your friends about it, get their butts in these seats, that will mean the world. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Joan.
Yeah, thank you, Joan. We're in the midst of a legend. A luminary.